The next question is from Alexei Karamazov, who asks, what strategies can be employed in combat sports to overcome a large size disadvantage, whether it be reach, height, or weight? And are there any notable real-life examples where the much smaller fighter put on a clinic?
Before we give the real answer, can I say letting them kick your ass until they're tired is a tried and true strategy that always works for smaller people against bigger people. And I have tested this theory many times.
Yeah, I think it depends, like the striking and the it's hard to overcome because what's effective with in the striking and the grappling are like
it's very situational. It really always depends on the match.
When it comes to striking, there are like two main approaches that have been like historically used in boxing to deal with like big reach or height disadvantages. One is to pressure and get inside, obviously. So you try to fight for your jabbing distance. That especially in like comically large like reach and height differences, you can take away a lot of the power of the straight shots of your opponent if you get like really inside. Attacking the body is always good. But yeah, taking back to my original point of pressuring, like staying very close to your fighter, do not give him
or staying all the way out,
kicking distance. And the other one, is staying all the way down and countering, because like very long fighters have like a long time of cooldown, to say that in terms of gaming. But when you're very long, if you punch, retracting,
it takes them a while to reset, basically.
So that's where you go in and you attack.
You can draw a fighter into you, and then you meet them halfway. As they're moving into you, you just explode into range and then crack them.
Duran versus Barkley is a good one.
Yeah.
See that?
Machida
That's not MMA, but
Machida used to fight very long against.
I mean, boxing is like one of those sports where we actually see lots of those types of matchups.
Yeah,
where one guy is way taller and rangier.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think those are all good ideas. Also, if it is a grappling matchup and they're way bigger than you, you might just be out of luck.
No, but when it comes to grappling, there might be some positions that you might want to try to avoid. Right? When it comes to control positions, especially, I do not recommend like side control if it is like a very, very large discrepancy in weight.
Taking side control on somebody who is bigger than you.
Yeah, it's very easy to escape for them. Like just settle for half guard most of the time. In fact, like just try to lock down from the top half guard.
Honestly, guard is sometimes a really good place to be.
Full guard, because when you're short, it's very easy to land ground and pound from the inside. Like we've seen that Fyodor, when he fought like very large guys, he fucked up semi-shields for himself.
I mean, obviously the question...
He had noted grappler semi-shield.
Obviously the question here is how you end up on top of the much larger person in the first place.
There are takedowns that are more effective against tall people.
Singles on an angle, never end up underneath anybody ever.
Exactly.
Make them balance, make them pummel, which is something that DC always says, and it's something that he has a lot of experience with.
Yeah, DC always tells like take advantage of them being like less agile than you, like make them move on one leg.
Which is funny because then when he fought John Jones and got to singles, he just kind of sat there.
Yeah,
I mean DC singles that does the way he does them, it's not exactly ideal.
He doesn't wrestle the way he tells people to.
Yeah,
but he knows how, but he doesn't do it anymore.
But the trip from single leg it's a very good takedown that DC use a lot, and that works against big people. One bad idea, I mean, it's generally a bad idea, but especially bad when you're smaller. It's like dropping to your knees during a double against the cage. That's terrible. Another thing that DC used to do a lot is like baiting the high crush, like making during the single, make people like put their weight over you, and then it's very easy to lift them up, unless the weight difference is like stupid large, like, and you can't take the other people up. But Usually
in a
you can.
pure wrestling match, if you were like bumping up in weight or something like that to wrestle someone way bigger than you, or at heavyweight where you could be like 199 pounds and your opponent could be 285 pounds, which is entirely possible in college wrestling. You know, what you do is, first of all, if you get taken down, be careful because they're going to squish you. But also, you get choice in college wrestling. So rule number one is you don't take bottom. You do not take bottom. You don't want to have their weight on top of you ever. So you don't shoot straight on them. You don't take bottom. You don't want to end up underneath them. But you can also like draw out these reactions. Like, I don't know. It's kind of harder to hit a duck under in MMA because like you're not having that like we're pressing into each other type of situation. But I don't know. People do it still. People hit ducks. Dominic Cruz hit ducks all the time. So you could hit duck under it. You could go, I don't know. When I say this is a head inside single, people are like, no, why would you shoot a head inside single on a heavyweight or someone bigger than you? Okay, but a swing single is a head inside single, but you take the outside. So your body is not underneath their body. Your head's inside, but your body is not. So that's fine. People are like, shoot head outside. I'm like, you could shoot head outside, but your body's still gonna be underneath them. Your head's gonna be poking out, and you're still gonna have to build up to get around. That's hard.
Very easy to break posture.
But doing things where you do not end up underneath them is essential. Which is why also wrestling on the cage is probably a bad idea, because usually when you see someone like dominating somebody on the cage, it's usually because that person's bigger. Like RDA's welterweight fights where he gets wrestled, he looks useless when they shoot on him on the cage. He looks like a helpless little baby sometimes. The only time that he looked like he knew what he was doing at welterweight was like Kevin Lee, and that doesn't count. So yeah, I mean, these are just obvious things, but like if you're like tied up with somebody and you're like clinching with them, I wouldn't. If they're way bigger and stronger than you, I would probably avoid any tie with any degree of permanence where you're like you can't just like get out right away. So you're on the collar, you're on the biceps, you're not like in an over under with them at all because it just doesn't work. So yeah, you have to
if you're going for clinches, if you're going for clinches, like try to get a good entry for double unders like immediately. Like you don't want 50-50 against a guy way taller than you. It sucks.
Yeah, I mean, just for training situations or like God forbid, like actual altercations, there may be situations where you're the shorter person with less range, but you're also heavier. So in that respect, crashing into the clinch may actually be something of a good idea.
That one's pretty good. But you still want to like avoid like a 50-50 because they have the leverage on you. Like when it comes to submissions, you also have to be mindful of what kind of submissions you're going for. Historically, like leg attacks have been very effective from smaller guys to bigger guys. A lot of examples of Minowa Man like submitting super heavyweights with Nivar's kind of harder to pull off because it's a little bit more strength based, but a lot of like ankle locks, toe holds.
Remember when Fyodor Emelianenko fought the actual like guy with gigantism, like
Hong Man Choi.
Hong Man Choi,
I think.
He
armbarred
from
him
guard, but he was getting fucked up from guard.
Yeah. It just looked really funny. Like Fyodor was actually like dangling from his arm.
Yeah, that's like
he's
hanging off his arm in the
air. Rear naked choke works against everybody, but you do not want to end in a backpack situation on your back on the floor, like because there's going to.
You can just go like this and turn into you.
Yeah. If you hit like the grip like immediately. Going back to what Ed said about like the bigger guys pushing you, there's a video of Brian Shaw, the strongman, training with Dustin Poirier, and they grapple for a bit, and Dustin tried to escape from bottom side control, and he cannot. He ends up tapping because he's squished under Brian Shaw. Brian Shaw is like I think
he's like 7 feet tall and like almost.
He's like 350. Like he's stupidly large. But when Dustin begins on top side control, Brian Shaw immediately escapes because the side control sucks when you're that small. But Dustin like immediately grabs the rear naked choke when he's standing up, and he taps him immediately because it's a very clean rear naked choke. Obviously, you don't want to engage in the backpack thing, but if you get like a clean choke, like a quick choke, those are very effective. You can tap a guy super quick. There was like talks back in the day, like that Pudzianowski was going to be invincible in MMA because you cannot choke him. Like his neck was too thick. I remember reading that on Sherdog.
It's the only way to lose. So if you can't choke him, how would he lose?
That's stupid. Like you can.
That's not
anyone.
true. Yeah.
Like
it doesn't really matter.
Especially rear naked choke. Like
didn't Khalidov just choke him?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. It doesn't matter the length of your neck, of your actual neck. It doesn't like determine chokeability.
It's the number of chins you have.
There's another submissions you do not go for. I would say Kimuras and Americanas are obviously out of the question immediately. Like, do not do that.
Triangles.
I don't
even know how you would lock a triangle on something that's
triangles. I would say which other one is bad? Thoughts on Tars and Anaconda? I would say that if you close the map like very good immediately, maybe. But if you
have to be really, really quick on chasing that far leg.
If you have a good finish, because if you ever need to like adjust, you're probably not going to get it.
Yeah,
against someone large.
I feel like, I don't know, at least me and you, I don't know where you stack up in this conversation, Tumen, but I'm almost always the smaller person in training.
I grappled a lot of
I've grappled with a lot of big people.
I'm the stockier person, but I'm usually the heavier person, so that's like
a lot of big people in training before. And my initial answer of letting them kick your ass until they get tired, that definitely works. Just out cardioing them and just creating space a lot and just like making
scrambles from bottom.
Yeah, it usually works for me. But also, I'm not in situations where they can punch me, which would change everything. Because like I'll spend like a really long time in bottom positions, like not being able to get out until like they make a move, and then I'll explode. But also, I don't know. Something I've done is the peek out from bottom of front headlock. The peek out definitely works. And you can see that Nogueira versus Bob Sapp hits a nice one from underneath the front headlock against Bob Sapp. So the peek out works against big people because they want to put that weight down on you. So all you need to do is get a little bit of separation off the floor, and you
use that momentum to just
so you don't have to work against their strength at all. You just need a little bit, then you're through, and then you're on their back or something like that. But once I get on top, I do not ever voluntarily go to my back. Not from back control, not in any situation. So if I have any sort of submission, I will let go of it if it means I have to go to my back to finish it. Even if I was sure I really had it, I just wouldn't do it because top gaming a big person is actually sometimes easier.
For example,
are not as good off their back.
I've gotten like very good guillotines on big people. I've submitted big guys on guillotines, but I wouldn't advise to do so because for a regular like no arm guillotine, going to your back, if it doesn't work, you're so fucked. I would recommend to go to like a high elbow and try to sweep immediately for top position. Even if it's like a lower percentage for you, most of the time, I would take the top position.
Even if it's full guards with you, but as long as you're on top. And from that position, if you can fire off elbows from that position, that's a good position to be in.
Yeah, for sure. I think we cover pretty much.
Yeah, so
I'm not going to give away all my secrets.
Just to summarize, there are multiple different ways. Like being at a range disadvantage is not the same as being at a height disadvantage. It's very different. Someone can be the same height as you, but have longer arms. And so in that situation, what you have to think about is how to circumnavigate that range. And there are two main ways of doing that. Either stay all the way out or get all the way in. Second, which is the height advantage. And it depends. It can like weight plays the majority of the role here, because the biggest role here, because if you get inside on someone who is taller and longer, and if they're heavier, they can just lean on you, and then it gets into all those nuances about which positions you may want to choose. And if you're grappling someone who has short arms but is taller than you, then things may get a little bit easier from there. And grappling obviously against someone with a weight advantage is like completely different from grappling someone who is simply longer. So you have to, you know, you have to kind of pick your battles first of all, but second of all, you usually just try to avoid all the positions where you get smushed.
Oh, can I make a recommendation? If you have access to watch Flow Wrestling videos, actually, I think they put a lot of it on YouTube. Flow Wrestling did like a knockoff Ultimate Fighter show for like no time limit submission only grappling competition called Who's Next, and there's a lot of like weight mismatches, and a lot of the times where like the smaller person beats the bigger person, the matches go for like 3 hours, which is sometimes what it takes to beat a bigger person in grappling, is just outlast them. But if you want to see it happen, and they chop it up so you don't have to watch for 3 hours, I would go watch some of those because it's interesting. You can see a lot of examples of the stuff we're talking about. So
when it comes to MMA examples, like Sakuraba has fights at light heavyweight. I mean, most of them. They are very good watch, and also like watch Minowa. Minowa fights a lot of like super heavyweights, and he was called the giant killer for a reason.
For striking, there's like in boxing, there's tons of examples of smaller guys beating bigger guys, like Duran, obviously, Barkley. Duran versus Barkley, obviously, a really good example. Also at heavyweight, Dwight Muhammad Qawi, like the man fridge, the stockiest man that's ever lived, also the heaviest. Amazing to watch. Some of his tactics are really interesting, but also we haven't talked about kicking tactics. I think that there's a bit of a blind spot in our feedback.
When it comes to kicking and the search, Senshai has a lot of fights where he's giving up like a lot of amount of weight, and he's fighting in under kickboxing rules, not Muay Thai rules, and still winning most of those fights. Shout out to Osik versus Anthony Joshua too, that we saw not a long time ago. Like pretty big, like height and reach disadvantage. Some tactics that Senshai does is a lot of counter kicking. Just kicking the legs when the bigger opponent is trying to kick you. Catching kicks is something that he does a lot too. He also plays a lot varying between sitting back and countering and pressuring.
Yeah,
like he makes sure to take control of the distance, making the opponent uncomfortable.
A good idea against someone who is way longer than you. They're obviously going to try and exploit that advantage, and so you bait that. You kind of like bait linear kicks, take the angle, and then kick the standing leg. There's also that's cool.
But obviously be careful with low kicks, because when the other person is a lot taller than you, your low kicks are from their punching range, and they can fuck you up.
That's actually one of the few situations where I'd actually prefer to calf kick than kick to the thigh. Perhaps.
Yeah, calf kick's very good against tall people, I would say.
All right, so I think that's comprehensive enough. If you have any if anyone has follow-up questions about these tactics, please feel free to shoot them in the comments, and then maybe we'll get to them next episode. Or better yet, subscribe to the Patreon so you can actually submit a question about those.